Alright, so a lot of people have asked me how they might go about creating a realistic water effect inside Photoshop. Well, as you know, water comes in many forms, so there's all different kinds of effects you can do with water. Well, in this video we're going to create water as if it's streaming out of something. Maybe it's being poured out of a glass or coming down out of a faucet or something like that. So, to do that, first thing I need to do in this document, I'm going to create a new layer. I'm going to fill that layer with neutral 50% gray by pressing Shift-Delete or Shift-Backspace. And we'll just use, under the contents here, use 50% gray, hit OK. Then, with the foreground and background colors set to their default black and white, we're going to simply go into the Filter menu and go to Render Fibers. And I'm just going to use the regular settings here, 16 and 4, hit OK. Then I'm going to go under Filter again. This time go to Blur, Gaussian Blur. And we're going to give it a good size blur here. Radius of 20 pixels looks pretty good, so we'll hit OK. Then I'm going to go under Filter again. This time go to Blur and Motion Blur. We're going to give us a little bit more blur to remove some more of that harshness in there, but this time we're doing it directionally. In fact, I'm going to do it at a 90-degree angle, which is straight up and down, at 100 pixels. If I toggle the preview on and off, you can see the difference there. So we'll just hit OK. Now, to create the water effect, I'm going to go under the Filter menu and go to Artistic Plastic Wrap. Now, for many of you that might have seen my ice tutorial I did not too long ago, know that this is the exact same procedure. We're just tweaking a few things to achieve a more realistic water effect, less than an ice effect. So in this window, I'm going to leave my highlight strength at 15, detail 5, smoothness of 12, and we'll hit OK. Then we're going to the Filter menu again. This time we're going to Sketch Chrome. And we're going to apply the chrome as at detail set to 0 and the smoothness set to 10. Then we're going to hit OK. Now I'm going to lessen the effect of the chrome a little bit by going into the Edit menu and go to Fade Chrome. And the only thing I'm going to change in here is the blending mode, which I'm going to go down to Overlay. And there you can see we're getting a pretty interesting effect there. It shows more of that plastic wrap and kind of tones down that chrome effect a little bit, but it's still there. So we'll hit OK. So now I'm going to zoom out in the Photoshop window here by holding down Option, Command, and then the minus key. This will be Alt, Control on the PC. And I'm going to bring up my free transform on this layer because I want to stretch this file out, or this layer out, vertically. I'm going to do that by holding down my Option key and then dragging out the center handle here. So if I hold down that Option key, it'll scale it out from the center so I can stretch this document out in both directions. So once that's done, I'll just press Enter. But now, that area that I stretched outside the viewable area is still there. I just can't see it, but I know it's still there, and it's going to be affected by anything I apply from here on out. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of that by pressing Command A, and that will select my entire document. You can see all the selection on the outside here. Go under Image to Crop. Now we don't see anything happen, but what has happened is that all those extra pixels outside my viewing area are now deleted. They're no longer there. Now, let's go ahead and distort this to look like a stream of water. It already almost looks like a streaming water effect already, but we're going to distort it a little bit more. Now it's going to be better viewed against a color background. So here I have a color gradient that I'm going to apply this to. And I'm going to go ahead and change the blending mode of this layer to Hard Light, so we can kind of see the effect that's going to be happening here. So I'm going to bring up my free transform by pressing Command or Control T. Control or right-click directly on the object, and we'll get this menu, go down to Warp. I'm going to zoom back out that window a little bit more. So now I'm going to grab these corner handles here and just kind of drag them toward the center of this document. Now, I don't just have to grab the handles. I can warp this by grabbing anywhere inside the document here. So I'm just going to go crazy and just grab these handles, and let's just distort this water in this direction and push this out there and just go nuts with it. Get all kinds of different effects to really make this water look like it's just chaotically pouring down. So, sort of. So once I think I've got a pretty good distortion, I just press Enter. And if I zoom in here, you can see I've got what looks like a pretty convincing streaming water effect there. It's really not looking too bad at all. So now I could go ahead and duplicate this layer to intensify that effect a little bit more. As you can see it does, I'm going to in fact lessen that by dropping the opacity of that layer to about 50%. But you can see the difference. It's increased that contrast, giving me a little bit more realism there to it. So you can see that. That looks pretty good. So, you know, I could take this and use it as a design element, or I can perhaps apply it to a very realistic setting. In fact, I've got an image of a faucet here. So let's say I wanted to apply this to this faucet so it looks like it's really coming out of there. Well, go back into this document. I'm going to merge these two layers together by pressing Command E with that top layer selected. Now, I may have some area extending beyond the document, and as I did before, I'm just going to select all and crop that area so I don't have to mess with that. Now I'm just going to drag and drop that water into this file here. Now it's a little bit bigger, so we're going to have to scale it in just a little bit. Just like this. I'm just going to position this right to the point where I think it's going to be pouring out of that faucet head. I'm not worried about the area extending above it because I'm just going to use a layer mask to mask that out. So once I think I'm in position, I'll just press Enter. In fact, let's bring the rest of this water effect up a little bit so it has a little bit more variation in there. Nudge that over. So now I need to mask that area that's above this line here. So I'm going to create a layer mask on this layer, and get a brush, painting with black because I want to mask out the entire area. And we're just going to make sure we use a relatively soft brush here, and I'm simply just going to paint away that area that I don't need in there because the water's coming out of the faucet right under here. And there you can have it. There you see it, I mean. Realistic water flowing right out of that faucet. We created it entirely right here in Photoshop. And again, as I said, doesn't have to be in a realistic setting. Here you can, you know, certainly take this and go wild with it and create maybe another watery background behind this image here to create a whole different effect altogether. But you can get the idea of how you can create very realistic elements by just applying a few different filters and just warping them like crazy. So experiment with yourself and see what kind of results you get and have fun with it.